Democrats Live. This is Keith Ellison, your host. And everybody, let's give it up for my pal, Neera Tanden of CAP, Center for American Progress. Neera, welcome. Good to see you, buddy.
Great to be with you, my friend.
Well, you know what? Let me just do a little bit of homework here. You know, first of all, Resistance Summer is going awesome. You want information on Resistance Summer, just go and plug in 43367 and type in resist, and you'll get updates, regular updates. We want to get you involved. It's going well. Be part of it. And also, we want you to, we're streaming live, streaming live at live.democrats.org. And you can plug in, tell a friend, get on there with the pal, and plug into what we're doing. The Democratic Party is on the move. We are getting across this country. We are fighting every single day. And tonight we're going to be talking about health care, what else? But also we're going to be talking a little bit about how it went last night in Georgia and South Carolina. Neera is among the sharpest minds in our whole country on these issues, and it's great to be getting her take on where we stand politically. So, Neera, you are the leader of the Center for American Progress. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about the center and you.
Great. First of all, I want to say it's really fantastic to be with you. And we spent a lot of time working on the platform, the Democratic platform, together last year, which was the most progressive platform in the Democratic Party's history. And so it was great. It was a great experience for me.
Me too.
I learned a lot from you and on a whole range of issues. So it's really great to be with you again.
Oh, yeah.
So the Center for American Progress and the Center for American Progress Action Fund, one's a think tank and one's an advocacy organization. Both of them are focused on actually how to improve people's lives. Today, in the Trump administration, or some would say regime, we have
getting closer to the regime part. We'll talk about that in a minute.
We are dealing with a lot more of defense of issues like defending the progress that was made, not just really over the last 8 years, but over the last 20, 30, 40 years. When you talk about what they want to do on health care or on taxes or the budget, we're looking at the most radical right-wing proposals that I've seen in my entire career. I mean, more than the contract with America. I mean, going back further beyond the contract with America in the mid-1990s to policies really to the right of Reagan. Mm-hmm. So, I think a lot of times we focus on Trump's tweets and the kind of, and his insults, which are maddening to me as anyone else. But we try to remind people that when you are talking about destroying a program that feeds women, infant, and children, it's like the WIC program, women, infants, and children, or destroying programs that have been the bedrock of helping communities left behind, urban and rural. LIHEAP, dramatic cuts to LIHEAP, and now the healthcare bill is, it's not just destroying the ACA, it's destroying the Medicaid program, which helps millions of low-income folks across this country in every state. And so, I kind of think of a focus for us is to ensure that, people are aware. And one of the things that we're excited about is we've been working, the C4, our advocacy team, has been working with a lot of the resistance organizations, as well as traditional folks like MoveOn and SEIU, but resistance groups like Indivisible and Swing Left to really focus the attention on what's happening. And that's why what we're doing now and talking about healthcare is so critical.
Well, big praise for those groups because they have really been turning out folks. I mean, I did a town hall in the 3rd congressional district, which is next to mine. They invited me and they invited the congressperson from the 3rd congressional district. I showed up. He didn't quite make it. Maybe the directions were bad.
I'm sure that's what it was.
Right.
It's really that the directions were bad.
right. But we thought 200 people were going to show up. About 250, 60 showed up. We standing room only.
That's great.
People want to talk about health care. We did the same thing in the 2nd congressional district where Jason Lewis narrowly won his seat in the last election. Packed out Council 5, AFSCME Council 5. They filled out their hall all around health care and the future of our country.
And
like
Jason Lewis voted in lockstep on this bill.
So did Eric Paulson. Yeah, they sure did. And so, here we are. But like last night, Cap keeps its eyes on these races too. So should we be encouraged or not in terms of what happened in Georgia 6 and then South Carolina?
Yeah. So. I think we have to recognize that these are tough races. I mean, why are we having these special elections? We're having these special elections because Donald Trump picked people from these districts to be in his cabinet. So he didn't pick people who are in swing districts. He picked people in hard right districts. They're in Georgia 6. Tom Price held that seat, and he won by over 20 points, and et cetera. So I hear out there it's disappointing to lose. This was a very competitive race in the sense that there was so much money spent and the polls were so close. And so I get that it's disappointing, but when you step back and really look at the numbers, which I think it is really important to do, is in all of the 5 special elections we've had, we had 2 yesterday, 3 before that, you've seen a swing of Democrats. So not to get nerdy, but the average rate amongst Democrats in these races is 68%.
That's good.
The average participation for Republicans in these districts is about 56%, I think. So that is usually, as you know, in off-year elections, those numbers are really switched. Republicans turn out and Democrats don't turn out. So the fact that you're getting such high participation is an incredibly important sign for the future. There's so many races. I think someone did an analysis that showed there are about 50 races, 60 races that if those numbers held up around the country, Democrats would win those seats.
That's right.
So I think there are important lessons to learn. I think what we learned from Georgia 6 is it's not so easy to get Republicans to vote for Democrats.
Right.
But it does seem easy. But it is, in all these races, we're seeing Democrats really come out. And I think it's important to motivate those folks and provide them with strong ideas about the future, but also be mindful that that is exactly what happened in 2006. Democratic participation really rose. Republicans were a little more anemic, and that's a sign for success into the future. Again, we're in districts that are really Republican. People were like, "Oh, it's a +1 Trump district," but you're asking people to vote for a Republican versus a Democratic candidate, and I think we have to be. It's a very positive sign that we had that participation, but obviously it's always better to win than lose.
It's always better to win, but there had not been a Democrat in Georgia 6 for 37 years.
Yeah, and we haven't had a competitive race in 2 decades.
Yeah,
and so. And even with all the negative money, what happened in this race is Jon Ossoff was able to raise a lot of grassroots money.
Yeah.
The party definitely helped him, but the super PACs, the right-wing super PACs, came in and spent over $20 million in very negative ads. So. I think we have to be mindful. I think it's a really important thing for grassroots donors to step up for these House candidates. We have fantastic candidates running already all around the country.
We do.
People from all walks of life, steel workers, business leaders, union members, nurses, doctors. And so, I hope people would go online, look at their races, look at other races in their area, get behind candidates. Early money is really helpful to them.
That's right.
I've supported each of those 5 candidates. I don't, and anything I can give, I think it's important to just support anyone you can.
That's right. So be encouraged.
Yeah.
we
have
up, y'all.
Yeah, we have. I think it's so, this is so funny. Like when you look online, like the just psychological profile of Democrats versus Republicans. It's like Democrats, like see a half empty glass, and it's like it's not only as empty as the glass half empty, but it's definitely going to collapse and fall over any moment. And Republicans see a half empty glass or half full glass, and we're like, it's not half full. It's actually full. You think it's half full, but it's actually full. It's wrong.
Yeah,
it's always been full.
Right.
It's all, and we're going to have many full glasses.
And we're going to keep winning.
And
the blacks love me. Women, they love me. Everybody loves me.
Yes.
You remember that?
So I think we have to, these were hard-fought races, and it was like, I think we got a lot of people were excited, enthusiastic about the possibility, and it's definitely, I totally recognize it's disappointing. I was disappointed.
Well, me too. Nira, let me just ask you though, so did we build something to last? So
yeah.
See my point?
Yeah.
What do you think?
So I think the point you're making is really important, which is, and this is the thing I'm actually most optimistic about, which is what's really happening in the country and these groups that are forming and these new groups that are forming completely completely out on their own. They're completely organic. You see people meeting once a week, hundreds of people meeting once a week to say, how do I take my country back? There's 2,000 indivisible members in Darrell Issa's district. 2,000.
Now that one was close last time.
Very close.
Darrell.
Very, very, very close. And so I think that is the most critical issue. Every election you can swoop in and put money on the air. But what we're seeing is people who are doing activism for the first time in their lives. Women who are making calls into Congress. People who've never called Congress before are
thousands of women running for office.
Thousands of women. We have 11,000 women running for office at every level.
Some big old number.
Yeah.
State legislature, city council, school board, water board, whatever.
Absolutely. And, in Virginia, they have more Democrats competing at their local elections than they have in 20, 30 years. So
that's where it's at, man.
And for people listening to this, it's like you need to step up, too. You can run for city council or for a school board or for whatever race, and get involved. And Brian Schatz tells me, Senator Schatz told me this great story. He went to a city council meeting, and he was raising an issue when he was 25 years old. And he's raising, he was an activist, and he went to the city council meeting, and I can't remember what the issue was, but his city council member was sleeping. And he decided to challenge the city council member.
I'm running, yeah.
And he ran and won, and years later, he's a pretty young senator. So, we need what I'm most optimistic about is people running, the excitement out there. The right wing is always going to try and say, there's no way of beating Trump. There's no way of winning, even with all this money. And we have to recognize that Democrats are stepping up and voting, and that's been critical.
It is critical. And it's 2017.
Yeah.
And we got some big elections, municipal races this year, and we got the governor in New Jersey and Virginia. But then we're building a platform for 2018.
Absolutely.
I mean, all those folks who learned how to knock doors and went with the DNC, we sent a lot of folks.
Yeah.
The interns aren't even back yet, Nira. they drove all the way down there. They're coming back. They're not home yet. But they learned how to do that. They have that experience now. That's in their belt.
Right.
And we will build on that. And let me just tell you, our Resistance Summer Kickoff Day was June 3rd. We had events in all 50 states.
Oh, wow.
We had 120 sites.
Uh-huh.
And our Resistance Summer is an intensive engagement over the course of the summer. We're going to have a big capstone event on Labor Day. We're encouraging people to book your picnic site now, so we can celebrate Labor Day in good fashion. But then we're going to take all the data, the new context, the relationships that we built, parlay them right into an engagement mobilization in the fall. And then in 2018, we're not going to get ready. We're going to be ready.
Right.
We're going to have an army of organized, trained people ready to go hit the ground rolling and make the most out of the moment that we're in right now.
And the most important thing, there's going to be races. I think it's 34 governor's races, maybe 36. 34 governor's races.
You're right.
We have 2 in, obviously, this November in New Jersey and Virginia. And, one thing to be very optimistic about is in the Virginia primary, we had a 30% increase in turnout.
Lovely.
The top 2 Democrats, the Democrats running, the one who lost did better than Ed Gillespie, who won the Republican in terms of votes. So,
and the one who lost immediately endorsed the one who won.
Yes.
Which means
a lot more unity.
No circular firing squad, which is awesome.
Yes, and unusual sometimes, but it's really important. And I think I had the pleasure of working with Tom Perriello.
My man, I love that guy.
He's a great guy. He's
is
a great member of Congress. I know he will have a long future in the Democratic Party.
Got it all
but
going.
he's been campaigning for Northam already. Excuse me, multiple times, and I think it'll be. I think we'll see. But I think the most important thing is with the Resistance Summer and the activism we're seeing is. It's not just a presidential year. I think that's what people understand, that there's governor's races, there are state legislative races, there are Secretary of State races. If we want to ensure that Republican efforts to stop people from voting, the kind of most egregious voting restrictions that we've seen in states like Wisconsin. We have to win those governor's races.
We got to win them, yeah.
And what's great about being in your congressional district or Paul Ryan's congressional district is these groups are active and engaged in the congressional races, but they're also there to get people involved in the governor's races and local races. Yeah. And I mean, that's what I'm really optimistic about. And it's been great leadership that you've shown for a long time, but really operationalizing now. Operationalizing now at the DNC to get activists to see politics as a critical component.
Hey, man, Walter Reuther said you got to marry the bread box to the ballot box.
Absolutely.
Right? Your bread box and the ballot box, they got to come together, man. You got to send one impacts to the next. Let me ask you a question. So, obviously, you're the leader of a really important think tank organization like CAP. That means you must have always had just the best things in life and never really had to struggle. Is that how it is?
A little bit not like that. I have to say, I feel really privileged to work at CAP. And when I've worked for political leaders, to work on issues that really matter, like healthcare. And I honestly think it's an incredible way to pay back. So, I myself grew up in Bedford, Massachusetts, and when my parents, I'm the child of immigrants. My parents both came from India. Mm-hmm. And when I was 5, my parents got divorced, and my father left, and I was, in a sense, incredibly lucky because Bedford, we grew up in Bedford, which has great public schools, but because of a kind of fluke almost, Massachusetts passed this law. Those government bureaucrats in Massachusetts passed this law.
I like the bureaucrats.
Yeah, saying that if you, for people who wanted to build housing, apartments and such, in suburbs, they would speed their permits if they did a set-aside for low-income families. Mm-hmm. So Bedford is a super middle-class town, and we were middle-class until my parents got divorced, and my mother had to go on welfare, and she was thinking about where to move, and it just happened that these apartments opened up, and we were able to move into an apartment in Bedford from our nice house, but stay in an apartment in Bedford. And she used Section 8 vouchers to do that. And, at that time, she faced this choice of going back to India or being here on welfare. And she chose, for people who don't know, there aren't that many divorced people in India now, but there were a lot fewer in the 1970s. There's a huge stigma for any woman.
Probably hit women harder, huh?
A lot harder, and their children, a huge stigma for children. So she faced that kind of difficult choice and decided to stay here. And so we were on welfare for a couple of years. I still remember being at school, and I was the only kid with that. Back then, it was like a little voucher you got, like a little piece of paper to get lunch for 10 cents instead of $1.10. And I remember being in the Purity Supreme, and it was taking a while for my mom to use. Back then, they had like paper for food stamps, like fake dollar bills, and she was like rifling through to get it, and I was like, "Why are we using funny money?" And people, everyone else was using normal money, and she was like, "Well, we need this. Like it's, we're not like everybody else." So, but anyway, after a couple of years, my mom was able to get a job first as a travel agent back when we had travel agents at a little Indian travel agent shop in Waltham, and then a couple of years after that, she was able to get a job at Raytheon, which is a defense contractor in Bedford. And by the time I was 11, she was able to buy her own home.
Look at that.
Yeah, and so honestly, it sounds. I know we're all cynical and about politics, and everyone thinks it's really like House of Cards, but. Honestly, I only have the opportunities I have. I'm only here because a lot of political leaders decided to pass a whole series of bills, like the whole Johnson war on poverty. He created all these programs from welfare to Section 8 housing to free and reduced lunch that allowed my mother to get back on her feet, which is what these things are for. And so, it's so interesting. I did this. I was asked about this on a call-in show, and all these conservatives called in and were like, well, it's not the programs that helped you. It was your mother. And I was like, my mother is awesome.
Right.
She could not actually produce checks, right? So, so it was like.
So you mean poverty wasn't a state of mind?
No, it was so weird. It was just that we had no money. and so, it's such an interesting thing to me. Like, it's so ingrained that poverty is like a thing that people do to themselves that they couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that it was actually because of, I'll say it, government programs that I was able to get to where I am today. And, that's the theory, right? Like, I paid forward. I pay taxes today. I'm hopefully contributing.
Oh,
but that's
you're
because
awesome. You're doing amazing
that's
things.
because people that's the thing about public policy. And I know, like, again, people are so cynical. They think it's like so hokey to even say this, but public policy is really a bunch of political leaders thinking, I'm going to make people's lives better that I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
That's what public policy is really about. Well, that's what public service is about. On the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, members knew they could lose their seats.
Yeah.
And they voted for it because they thought it was the right thing to do to give people health care coverage. The Democratic Party has been campaigning on this for 70 years.
Yep.
We were never able to accomplish it, and people passed that bill. And I talked to a ton of members during the passage of the legislation, and all of them were basically to a T asking, what is it going to do to help? How's it going to work? And I talked to members who I knew and they knew they may not return after their vote, and they voted for it anyway because they thought it was the right thing.
Well, I can tell you, I'm in one of those so-called safe seats, big time air quotes, because I really don't believe in safe seats.
Yeah.
But I do win with like 69% of the vote, and which is more than a lot of folks do get.
And that's just a testament to you being awesome.
Well, absolutely. So the thing is that I remember we had those community meetings in August of 2010, and they were fearsome. I mean, some people were mad. They were saying that, you're creating death panels. You're going to. This is socialism. This is government takeover.
I mean, isn't the irony that they were talking about death panels?
Yeah.
When there were no death panels, and it just completely made it up, which is just another way of how the right wing can work effectively. But what's amazing is we have a bill that the Republicans are doing, which will cut people from health care. Now, we know that when people don't have health care coverage, when they don't have insurance, people die.
They die.
Before the ACA, 18,000 people died a year because they didn't have health care.
Listen to that.
So when you decide to take health care from people, and the right wing will say, they can go to the emergency room. Let me tell you a story. We've been collecting stories of people who don't have health care because of the ACA, and we found this one woman in Georgia 6, in Tom Price's district, and she came to Washington to talk about Tom Price. And, she's like a, really cute 55-year-old woman, like shorter than me, which is hard because I'm really short. But she came and she told the story, which is that she hadn't had health care in many, many years. She didn't have a job that provided health care. Her husband didn't have a job that provided health care. The ACA passed, so she hadn't been to a doctor in years. Yeah. The ACA passed. She got health care through the exchanges, and the next day she went to, literally the day after she got health care, she went to the doctor for the first time.
Wow.
The doctor found that she had breast cancer.
Oh, my.
Serious breast cancer. And she had to have not one surgery, multiple surgeries in order to get rid of her breast cancer. And thank God she's healthy today. But that is a woman, if she didn't have health care, may never have gone to that doctor and may not have known until it was far too late. Yeah. So when people say, nobody dies in America from health insurance, there's emergency rooms.
Raul Labrador actually said that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is just false. And it's just a false thing to tell yourself. And erase the responsibility that members are taking right now to decide whether they're going to ensure people have coverage and ultimately live longer, healthier lives or not. And that is, we are in a real crunch time on this Senate bill. So
why don't you go there a little bit? I mean, there was a rally over there in front of the Senate today. People are stepping up.
Yeah.
Groups like Ultraviolet, Women's Rising, others really pulled together a nice rally today. And, I guess give us 2 seconds on the state of affairs.
Yeah.
The House passed this nasty bill. All of us Democrats voted against it. It passed by 2 votes. Then, the Senate has taken up something that's been super quiet.
Yeah.
Some might even say secret. Right?
They're so proud of this bill, they want to keep it secret until the last possible moment.
Right.
So, yes, exactly. That's where we are. So
Trump calls the House bill mean.
Yeah.
Which is irony. But I will say this, though.
Honest.
But here's the thing. If anybody knows whether something is mean, it'd be Trump, right?
Yeah. He's on it. No, you can take his word for this on this one. So here's where we are. Mitch McConnell has been drafting this bill in secret, just with Republicans only, after he attacked the ACA process and
what a hypocrite, man.
Republicans.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, what a hypocrite.
Stunning hypocrisy.
Paul Ryan, all these Pence attacked the secrecy of the process. And as you know, we had what felt like years of hearings, but also hundreds of hearings.
Hundreds of amendments. Republican amendments.
170 bipartisan amendments accepted. There was an amendment process in
3
committee.
committees.
They will take up this bill, the AHCA, without a single patient, doctor, nurse testifying, having their voice heard at all in the process.
Because
not once will they do. Why? Because they want to jam this bill through in the last week. So there's a rumor the bill may become public tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then Mitch McConnell wants to put it on the bill next week. No hearing, no public discussion, no markup. And it's part and parcel of the strategy to really, jam things through. And so I have to say, this is crunch time. This is the time to call your senators. This is the time to call your elected leaders. Can I just name a few?
Yes.
So if you are in a state with a swing senator, call them. If you were not in a state, call your friends in the other states and have them call. So the swing senators are Heller in Nevada, Dean Heller in Nevada, Shelley Moore Capito in West Virginia.
Isn't it true like a third of the people in West Virginia rely on
ACA and Medicaid? Huge Medicaid recipients. It's terrible for them. Lisa Murkowski in Alaska. Mm-hmm. Alaska has incredibly benefited from the ACA, and we're hoping for her. Collins.
That's 4.
Flake in Arizona.
5.
He's been pretty quiet. We're worried about him, but Arizona is a swing state, and a lot of opposition to this bill. And then there's some folks like Cassidy in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. Louisiana has done the Medicaid expansion under Governor John Bel Edwards. Yep. Huge, devastating losses. He's a doctor. And then there are a few others like, did I say Portman in Ohio?
You did not yet.
Portman, Senator Portman, who John Kasich, and the governor has come out against the House bill, likely to come out against the Senate bill. Huge losses there. They've done the Medicaid expansion. And then there are folks like, our favorites, Rand Paul
from Kentucky.
I mean, it could go either way with that name, right?
right.
And Ben Sasse and Mike Lee, who've been kind of making conservative sounds about the bill and sound like they may not support it. But, if you're in any of those states, please, this is the time to call your senator. If you know people in those states, call your friends. Go to their offices. There's a series of events happening in district offices over this weekend. Senator Sanders is, I think, leading a lot of protests this weekend, which will be hugely, hugely consequential. And so,
by the way, I will be in Oakland, California with Barbara Lee at a community meeting talking about this healthcare bill?
Absolutely, and really critical. And so, anything people can do to light the fire under their senators and let them know that they will be responsible for millions of people losing health care and terrible consequences. I mean, kids with pre-existing conditions, never able to get health insurance, lifetime limits, people with cancer running up against
What
their
about the
lifetime
opioid thing? I mean, 2 million people addicted to Oxy and stuff like that. What are we going to?
Yeah, and the way that communities are really addressing this is through health insurance writ large, through their Medicaid program. And those costs will be devastating. Now, some of these senators want to say, "Oh, we'll do an opioid fund of like some amount of money, and that'll fix the problem." But that's really just a bait and switch. We know it's not. We know people lose coverage.
23 million people we know will lose coverage. Who benefits from this kind of bill?
Well, the largest group that will benefit from this bill are billionaires and the super rich, because essentially
they need it.
Because what these bills really are a way to cut taxes. So they basically cut insurance, and then the way we paid for the ACA was basically a version of a millionaire surtax, and they want to give those tax cuts back to the millionaires. So
because we know they're going to invest in plant and equipment and spur jobs, because that's always what happens when you cut taxes and deregulate industry.
Yes, it's been working out great.
Yeah, that is like sarcasm by me.
So
let's see if we can get some folks.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
No problem.
I'm sorry.
So
anyway, now's the time to call
yeah.
or tweet or Facebook or whatever.
Whatever you got.
Well, on that same line, Shelley from Texas asked, "I'm very concerned about cuts to Medicaid. What can we do to persuade Congress to preserve health care for the poor? I do write my reps, but I don't think they listen."
So let me say, I think Texas is a really important place. Senator Cruz is actually in a really competitive race.
Oh, yeah.
He's running against your colleague,
Beto O'Rourke.
Beto's
the man.
And who's actually in public polls been running even. Maybe that's because no normal person likes Ted Cruz. I don't know. And, not the most warm and fuzzy political figure. But I think it's the most important thing to do is really tell your stories. And I know it feels like they don't hear, but calling your congressman, going to their district office, if you can get a bunch of friends to go to a district office, one of the district offices of your senators, it is hugely important. And it might be that Ted Cruz votes against the bill for conservative reasons, even if he hears a lot from constituents. So call the district office, call the congressional office. Some people have posted online the health LAs and their phone numbers of members. That seems to be hitting some people. And but really, if you can get a bunch of people to just come this weekend and show up at the district office, that would be great.
That'd be great. What else you got?
Someone related to that too. How can Senate Democrats stop any action?
Who and where from?
This is from Beth from Connecticut.
Very important. Yeah.
Great. So here is the challenge we have with this bill. It is, and I'm going to go into some archaic terms. It is a bill that's being brought up under reconciliation rules, which is just a fancy way of saying they have special rules for this. It's a privileged bill. There are special rules for it, and they only need 50 votes. That also means that it's privileged, so the Democrats can't really filibuster bringing the bill up. If it was just a 60-vote bill, I know Democrats would be filibustering this bill. What I should note is, and I think this is a really important point, the Democratic caucus in the Senate and the House has been completely united in fighting this horror known as AHCA, or as I like to call it, Trump care. You could call it Ryan care or McConnell care, whatever you like better.
You don't care.
So from Bernie Sanders to Joe Manchin, everyone has been fighting this bill. So I think the other night they kind of held the floor. They're thinking about other things they can do to demonstrate their opposition. They've been walking out of hearings and closing down hearings. But I think, what we have to be mindful of is that it's not 60 votes for this. It's 52 votes, and it's 50 plus 1, and the Republicans have 52 votes. So what we really need to do is pull off 3 Republican senators from this bill.
And you know what? People power can help us do this.
They can. Now, I know that it's It's difficult, but if we think back, what Republicans really wanted to do was repeal this bill and then delay implementation for 3 years, and they got pushed off that because people said that's crazy town. We're not going to go for that, and Republican senators got nervous and stopped that from happening. So we can stop this. We can definitely stop this.
Maybe time for one last question.
Absolutely. So this question is from Lois from Florida, and she said, what can we as individual Democrats do to help organize in our local communities now to get out the vote in 2018?
So that is a great question. There are a plethora of groups, but even more importantly, there's your local Democratic clubs.
Sure is.
That are organizing in new ways all over. But there's also groups like Swing Left and Town Hall Project and Indivisible, a whole plethora of new groups, and you can just find them online. They are connecting up to a lot of Democratic clubs in really important ways. And here's what I would say. We do face real challenges with voter suppression throughout this country. So we have to get people early to recognize, sad and tragic as it is, that they may have to take extraordinary measures to get the ID they need, and we need to tell people that now, if it be so that they're prepared and ready to vote. It is a tragedy that we have an entire party, the Republican Party, trying to stop people from voting because that's how they think they can win, and we have to deal with those tactics. We're going to have to, for anyone who isn't registered, get them out now. Talk to your friends and family now about voting. Go into Labor Day picnic and talk about how many people you've brought in to vote. The way we're going to take back our country is by individual citizens standing up for progressive values and taking action. And we're seeing that, but there's a lot of work to do.
We need massive democracy, small d.
Absolutely.
We need massive participation. We need people to ramp up their engagement. You can get involved now with Resistance Summer. That's 43367, text RESIST, 43367, text RESIST. You can tune in to Democrats Live and listen to people like Neera Tanden. You can call, you can check out Democrats Live tomorrow when we're going to have my buddy Ben Ray Lujan, chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, and you can put your hands together for Neera Tanden, leader of the Center for American Progress, who kills, slays, fights them every single day. Proud of you, Neera. Thank you all very much.
Great to be with you.
Make sure you check out Democrats Live.